Mark McDonald, followed by Emma Harper. Mr McDonald, please.
Thank you very much, Presiding Officer. Message received and understood. I congratulate Mark Ruskell on securing this important debate and bringing this issue to the Chamber. He rightly mentioned at the very beginning of his speech the shadow of the Beeching report, which hangs over much of the rail infrastructure or lack of rail infrastructure in parts of Scotland, not just in rural areas but also in many urban communities which lost rail stations during the Beeching era. In my own constituency, have the rail station of Dice, which is one of the busiest small stations in Scotland, yet was one of the stations which was closed as a result of the Beeching report and wasn't reopened again until 1984. My office manager, who lives in Lumphanan, did ask me if I would also mention the loss of the D-side line. I said there might be a local member who would be willing to mention that, but I don't see any of the local members in the chamber, so I will put on the record as well the loss of the D-side line in the North East as well. Gillian Martin mentioned the Formartine-Buchan line, which she and I have in the past spoken about and agreed on the need for proper appraisal and investment to look at bringing that back into use. I've looked at the most recent appraisal report, and it is true to say that if one were to simply look at this as a cold cost-benefit calculation, it doesn't necessarily make sense on paper for the route to be reopened. But I believe that there are wider considerations, and indeed in transport appraisal terms, there is a positive case made within the report for the route to be brought back into use. I believe that as part of a wider rail strategy for the North East, it would have an integral part to play. There are obviously technical considerations, although the report does conclude that it is technically feasible for the route to be brought back into use, and it would connect through into my constituency through Dice Station and on to Aberdeen, were it to simply follow the previous route as used. Briefly, of course.
Gillian Martin.
Would the member agree with me that any proposed rail line should also have a station at Newmarket, so that other people are in the surrounding area, perhaps coming off the A947, might be able to park and ride?
Mark McDonald.
Indeed, and I believe that the three options assessed all included the option of a station at Newmarket. And I think, given the point I was going to make, which I'll make just shortly around urban expansion, the expansion that is taking place in Newmarket and other areas of the A947 corridor, that would be a sensible step to make. And I'm sure the member didn't have an interest as a resident of Newmarket in raising that in particular in terms of a station in Newmarket. But one of the things I would also want to highlight is around the need to look at urban stations, Presiding Officer. Looking in my constituency, communities such as Bucksburn or Woodside could benefit from an urban station. If we look at the development patterns that are likely to take place within the city of Aberdeen, Bucksburn in particular is likely to see a significant expansion, both in terms of housing, but also with the soon-to-be completed exhibition and conference centre and hotel infrastructure that will take place around that. The opportunity for an urban station, perhaps in the Stoneywood, Bucksburn or Woodside area, could have a significant effect in reducing congestion. We've already seen the AWPR take a significant amount of congestion away from the Hadigan roundabout and routes into the city. An opportunity to increase urban rail through the dualling of the line which has taken place, and also the provision of new urban stations may add to that. One final issue which I think needs to be highlighted is the question that continues to be asked, particularly by Aberdeen and Grampian Chamber of Commerce, around how exactly the £200 million that is identified within the city region deal for the North East will be spent to reduce rail journey times and improve infrastructure. There are concerns that that money may not be spent within the North East area, and that may not be entirely in keeping with the letter of what was agreed at the time that the city region deal was signed. I'd be more than happy to meet the Minister to discuss this further. As I say, it's an issue that the Chamber of Commerce have raised with myself and other local members on a repeated basis. And I'll stop there, Presiding Officer, in order to avoid incurring your wrath.